Alright, Shamu, we are back, everybody. Right at it, part 8. I want to go more into what Dion Fortune is trying to say in Mystic Kabbalah. So what ends up happening, as we were discussing, she talks about Malchut, the foundation, being in its lowest aspect and abutting upon the Cliffot, and that chaotic force rises from the left hand of it as a serpent from the world of the shells, which, as I said, does tie into the idea of the Cliffos within Luranic and Cordovan Kabbalah. What she does is she discusses and places also a protective threshold at Tifereth, saying that the Serpent of Chaos does not overpass Tifereth, which would then imply a balanced and heart-centered initiation blocking the left-hand path slide. Much as we talk about Tifereth being the solar conscious and lighting the world, and much as Crowley discusses that there is a point where the black magician, as opposed to the black sorcerer, switch that, figures out what he's doing is in vain and in desperation, and comes back in his voice and vision. So, Dion Fortune says, in order for us to approach Tifereth and do this without the slide to the left, is that you ascend via the middle pillar. You complete the planes of form, and only then can you begin to approach the supernal Keter. Otherwise, you veer off to the Cliphotic Keter, or the left-hand path. So, Fortune sits here and cements this as a ethical danger with practical and more structural dimensions, and kind of pulls this contrast. So this contrast with the right-hand path. So what Fortune does is she ends up moving this discussion away from Tantra completely and looking at it into the lens of Western Kabbalah, giving the left hand a Cliphotic ascent, giving it a structural map that the British occultists and later occultists are going to continue to keep referencing. This is where we start to see things really start to solidify in our understanding of the left-hand path, in our modern lens of what we view it is what Dion Fortune does in Mystic Kabbalah. Because now, what we see is a objective way to measure and to map what that descent is. Doing that allows the discussion not only of what it is, but how it can be avoided, as this was something still, in this time, still seen as something to avoid, hence why Fortune posits us moving up the middle pillar to keep ourselves balanced, to approach this threshold within Tiferet that prevents the Serpent of Chaos from coiling further into Keter. And so we really lay out what is occurring in the soul and in the universe when we talk about these black mages, when we talk about these left-hand path people. The original Tantra idea has become all but lost. Arthur Avalon has lost that battle. 20 Sanskrit texts translated, giant massive book. It was good, it was wonderful for people in the East and people interested in that. But Fortune sits here and says, I understand that you have this here, Mr. Avalon, But we are talking on something new now. So we have fully unhooked, and what is going to occur from here is we're going to go and soon be butting up against names such as LeVay and Aquino and Ford, and this really, what this rhetorical flourish that Fortune does in Mystic Kabbalah kind of ends up acting uh, accidentally or incidentally as a slipstream for the idea of the left-hand path, where it was on this slow burn since Blavatsky, where now we are going to rapidly pick up pace as more and more and more people weigh in or utilize this idea in and out of its context and start to use it for their own things, creating churches, creating orders. We're going to be going after this. Like I said, it's LeVay, it's Aquino, it's Carlson, it's Ford, it's Flowers. We're going to be moving very rapidly with the development of the left-hand path. And there is one other book that Fortune writes and mentions ends up mentioning the left-hand path. And this is a psychic self-defense book. I left this for last because while connected, this is kind of something coming out of Fortune's head and may have been Flight of Fancy kind of taking over and adding. But in Psychic Self-Defense, the main thing she's writing about is how to protect yourself. Fun fact, a lot of our ideas about wards come from this book. As cracked as I feel Fortune gets in this book, highly recommend reading. But regardless, she discusses, and I quote, "There are black sheep in every fold, and a fraternity may begin to drift onto the left-hand path. Also, the unseen is only evil when perverted by adepts of the left-hand path." Where Crowley wrote that this was an individual thing, that the idea of the Black Brother was an individual's choices and actions, Fortune here extends the moral framing, treats the left-hand path as a real social peril, one of predatory lodges, of exploitation, of criminality, of occult malefica with black lodges. She does not lean here literally on the phrase Brotherhood of Shadow, which was a theosophical term, but her usage of the term Black Lodge fills this same niche as this organized shadow fraternity that is opposed to the left hand. And so this sits here in a social form along this shortcut seeking occultist. It sits here in a social form along with the Kabbalistic map to really give us a beginning idea of a concrete dark left-hand path practitioner plus lodges, which will be quickly jumped on in the authors to come. But this is about where we see it. Next, I believe, I need to double check my notes, but next I believe we will be talking about LeVay. I want to thank you all for who have been in the watching these so far. I hope you guys are enjoying these. I do plan on continuing this and seeing this all the way through. I am just being very wary of what is said and what is not said. But as always, I need to get some sleep. May the ancestors grant you the sweetest of portents, and may your dreams be nothing but wonderful. Shamu, everyone.